Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. This is something we're going to talk about today that you would not normally connect with somebody who is a spiritual teacher, a life coach. She's also somebody that transforms lives. And the topic today we're going to talk about is death. Now, that comes in many different shapes and forms, of course, what we think it is, but then there's also the passing or the ending of, let's say, a relationship, a job, and so much more. And with any kind of death comes transformation and change. We're going to talk about that today. She is our professional of the year. She is somebody that gives you the courage to shine and move your life forward. Gives you direction for wellness. Sara Regester, our professional of the year, is back with us. How are you today?
I'm great, Steve. Really happy to be here today.
Should we call it death or should we just call it endings? I don't know.
Well, it could be an ending of a chapter, but there's something about the shock point of death and inviting death as an ally, as something you want to align with intention. And I bring this up because culturally, we're very afraid of death and talking about death and what we think of as a physical ending. But, in my world of shamanism, there's never truly an ending. There's merely a transformation that something will change and transform into another kind of energy. And so this is where many times we get fear triggered about the hard stop of something being complete and having that gap or empty space of what will be missing. And so that's where someone can really be caught in the devil or complacency, not ready or willing to take the steps to really let go of something so that you can transform your life in a more positive way, or a habit or pattern or inner dialogue. Like, it's infinite of how we could apply this concept of really letting things go intentionally with the invitation to bring in rebirth and renewal of something different.
Wow. Looking at it in a different way, yes, anything associated with death is usually not very positive, or that's the view, the initial view of it. But when you take it and look at it in a different way, that even if it's the passing of someone, it's not easy. Takes a lot of time to navigate through that. But on the other side of that has to be change and transformation. And it seems that holds true no matter what it is. Death of a job, relationship, whatever it is. I never saw it that way, that there is always going to be a change and transformation, no matter what.
And you still might need to go through the stages of grief to accept the change, to let go of the change, particularly if it comes as a surprise versus intentional steps to make it happen, when you're ready to let something go. For example, unexpectedly, you could have a job you really enjoy and suddenly it changes and you're without a job, and it comes as a shock. It's sudden and unexpected. And so it's normal to kind of do the emotional stages of acceptance, and everything it takes to grieve the loss.
Sure.
And on the other side, it's like moving forward. What's next for me? What's the next chapter? What door will open is kind of where we want to be intentional about our next steps of really embracing, let that change go, and let's see where I'm going to go next.
So let's look at that. Let's say you've navigated through the process following death. Again, doesn't matter what situation it was. And you're working your way through. Could take a long time. How do we start looking at it as transformation and change? And how do we navigate through that? Because not a lot of us like change.
It's true. And we're hardwired to not change.
Yeah.
Our whole nervous system and our neurons and how everything talks to each other and the patterns that are there are really very hardwired. So to bring about a change, whether you're intending it or not, it does take that keeping your focus on what's reality, what is, and to give yourself the space you need to maybe be introspective and withdrawn a little bit. But it's that self-care piece that's so important, that we don't just glaze over it and ignore it and pretend like it's not there. It's how we can keep coming back to what is. What's the truth? What do I really want? How does this align with me? And that staying focused and present is really key to moving forward. Because it's easy to get caught in the story and the swirl of the loss, the emotions, they did this and that, and blame. It's like, and we might go there. But once we realize, okay, this is not productive, me blaming everyone for what I've lost, I need to like shift gears here and think, what can I do to support myself? What's one step I can take to get moving forward?
What are some of those things that we can do? And yes, let's even start at the point of where, if it's a relationship situation, you're blaming somebody else. If it's the passing of somebody, you may be dealing with guilt. I should have done this. I should have called the doctor sooner, but on and on and on. And I'm not minimizing anything here. It's not easy, any of this. Loss of a job. I shouldn't have taken a vacation time. All of that stuff. How do we release that before we accept that there's change coming?
I think the first step that's the most empowering is to do an assessment of what you gained. What did that job provide for you that's now a skill, a talent, or an ability? What did that person or that relationship, even though it's hard when relationships end, it can be quite painful, but there's something that engagement with that person provided that gave you something. And so the healing comes when you can kind of harvest, how did I grow? What did I gain? What did that situation actually give to me in my life's journey that I can carry forward as wisdom, as empowerment, as knowledge or experience, skills?
As tough as it is, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And I believe it's somebody like yourself that helps us see that. Been through it, a relationship ended, didn't go well, wasn't expected. However, when I look back on that situation, I see the wins and resilience, courage, faith, all of that. And I probably would never use those words prior to that event. Wouldn't.
Exactly. I mean, some of our greatest growth opportunities, I would say, this is what I learned from my coaching clients. Like, we live so much of life through our work engagement, through our relationships, that there's a huge amount of growth that we do through the course of engaging with another in a relationship in our life, whether it's romantic or a work relationship. Like, we're always kind of mirrors to each other, reflecting to each other, rubbing against each other. And so there's something about the engagement, and when it changes, that you have the opportunity to stay mad, pissed off, blaming, and negative. Or you could turn around and say, well, really, even though that chapter's finished, I really got A, B, and C from this situation or this person, that I wouldn't have had this experience had I not engaged fully and, been with the reality that we lived together.
So let's say you've gotten to that point, you realized what positive came from a challenging situation. Mm-hmm. You're standing at the crossroads here of change and transformation. Where do we go next?
Forgiveness. Forgiveness is such an essential piece. And you know that you're really moving forward and ready to heal when you're willing to forgive yourself for lessons learned, mistakes, words you spoke or didn't speak, as well as forgiving the other person for how the circumstances were when it ended. This forgiveness is really kind of the secret sauce to bring that healing.
Never even thought of that one. And it exists in everything. I'm scanning my mind right now of every situation that could be an ending, death of something. And as I scan my mind, forgiveness is there. Kind of what we were saying before. I should have called the doctor sooner for them. I should have spent more time with them. You need to forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all of it. Wow.
Yeah. And remember that the retrospectroscope of looking backwards, you can see everything so clearly. But we're in the thick of it, living life in our scenarios together. It's not so obvious of what we could have done if we had done it differently. And so this is the key here is now that I can see what I see now, how can this be the wisdom that I can carry forward, that I can do it differently next time, that I don't have to keep rinsing and repeating those same patterns, those same lessons over and over, bringing it to the next job or the next relationship. Truly been there, done that, got the t-shirt should be our mantra when we've truly integrated what that loss is in a way that we can step out of the loss circle and step into the gain circle. Gaining for ourselves is really, the end of the day, the gift that someone or a job can give us.
How do we accept that change that's coming? We said we're not big fans of change. What do we do? How do we accept that?
I'm thoughtful because there's any number of ways. This is actually where coaching can help.
Yeah.
Getting that person that you can lean into to help you kind of. And so what I would do for someone is I would give them ceremony. For example, working with trees, or we might do some energetic cord cuttings, or, there's certain shamanic things I can do to support someone. But if I'm just out there in podcast world, it's important that we're thoughtful about our next steps and that next chapter of how we're going to do it differently next time. So being intentional, being focused, and there's no step too small when you're moving forward to move forward and not be stuck in the swirl of the past. It's very easy to get stuck in the past and rinse and repeat. And yet, when we're really ready, because we've been introspective, we've been thoughtful, we've given ourselves our inner space, it's very individual in the timing of when you're ready to move forward. And that self-care piece is really essential. And I'm not talking about indulgence. It's about, like, what do I really need that will feed my soul? What do I really need that will heal my spirit? What does my broken heart need that will help it to heal? And that's all self-love. It's all directing it inward before you're ready to put yourself outward.
So self-care. Been a while since I've done a podcast on that. Would you say that that's a important piece of the puzzle?
It is important, and what's important is it boils down to your values individually of what is important. What do you value most that will restore your heart, restore your emotional balance? And so it is about spending time in nature or spending time with key family that you enjoy being with. It's doing those either activities you enjoy by yourself, or finding a safe, comfortable person that you can share your time with. So it's very individual, but it's something that fuels your heart's desire, is how you bring healing to your heart. So it's variable from person to person of what that would look like. But nature can be a really strong go-to.
You just said something, and I'm trying to remember how to say it again, of how self-care fuels your heart. Can you repeat that part? That sounds very powerful.
Yeah. So the more we give to ourselves, our true heart's desire, the more we can heal our heart. It's like the true nature of self-love is how we can give to ourselves, because so often we're giving and over-giving to everyone in our world except ourselves. So a time of grief, a time of loss, where something important is no longer part of your life, it's an important part to not distract, not be indulgent of, like, I'm having this thing to eat or this extra cigarette so I can feel better. But it's like, what do I really need to heal my heart? What can I do that can be spontaneous or something that takes a little planning that truly nourishes my soul, that is giving to myself like no one else can?
How do you know what it is, though? How do you know what you need? Is it just the things that make you feel good? For me, I love kayaking. I like getting on the water. I can think, a little bit of peace, feel like I'm a world away, even though it was a 12, 15-minute drive. That's one thing that comes to my mind. But how do we search within to know that, this is what I need? This can help.
Yes, it's interesting because I work with people that have never even thought about their heart's desire. They don't even know what should be on the list.
Wow.
And it's not bucket list. It's more like the simple pleasures like hobbies. It could be doing puzzles. It could be in the garden. It could be some kind of crafting. Or in your case, it could be fishing, kayaking, something outside in nature. That there's an actual, here's an opportunity I can share. So if someone doesn't really know what is the heart's desire, how they can give to themselves, there's a simple exercise that you do one thing that's pure heart's desire a day, nothing too small, one heart's desire per day for 30 consecutive days. And if you miss a day, you start over at day one until you can sustain 30 consecutive days of one activity a day that's pure heart's desire. That's how you train that muscle.
Wow. I heard somebody speak about this recently, but I don't recall it being connected to your heart's desire. But he was talking about something you should do every day. And if you don't, you start at the beginning again. I wonder if it was the same exact thing. So let's break that down a little bit more. So every day is a different activity that, to your heart's desire. Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have?
And it's not bucket list. It's got to be simple, small things.
Yeah. It could be, I'm getting a massage tomorrow. Or it could be, I'm going to go home and cook a steak. I haven't had one in like 2 months. And, all right, I'm going to pick it up and do it. It'll make me feel good. I like it.
It could be like a bubble bath or coffee with a friend.
Right. Okay.
It's like, it's unlimited, but that when I'm engaging in this thoughtful, mindful approach to what does my heart desire, there's something about that being present with yourself, tuning inward and paying attention. Even in the moment, something might come up like, oh, there's a bookstore. I want to go browse in there. Mm-hmm. It could be so simple. But when we're busy on a trajectory of doing, we're distracting, we're giving to everyone in our lives, who's on the bottom of our heart's desire list? Probably ourselves.
Yeah. Now, is there a name for this activity, the 30 days?
Well, the name I give it is Feeding Your Heart's Desire.
Okay. Love it. Mm-hmm. And that being said, all 30 days, do they all have to be different? Or can you circle back and say, man, I really enjoyed that. I'm going to do that again, 2 weeks later?
You can circle back. Like, we don't want to get rigid with the rules around it. The flavor of spontaneity, though, is you get extra heart juice when it's something spontaneous.
I got to tell you, Sara, this whole concept excites me. It is so minimal in some regards, but so exciting because there's a plan and formula. And I've gotten to the point where if time goes on, few days, whatever, and I haven't done something for me, and I am the person that never did anything for me up until a few years ago, I feel like I'm gypping myself. I feel like I cheated myself if I don't. Does that make sense? Have you felt that too?
Yes, and it's an important part of self-care. People get confused sometimes, and they might think that being indulgent with self, like, I'll watch this extra Netflix, or instead of taking a walk, I'm going to relax. Maybe you do need to recharge, But there's something about knowing the difference between indulging yourself and truly nourishing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something that isn't naturally in our culture, that we have so much incoming data, devices, distraction. It's like to sort through all of that and tune in internally. It kind of gets back to that same tool we talked about with that pause, notice, choose, as a practice of like, what is my heart's desire in this moment? What do I need for myself when I'm feeling this wave of grief and loss? I just need to just take a moment with myself and think, okay, I need a cup of tea, or I just need to take, a little walk outside. That we have to catch those moments of, as loss and grief can come in waves. It's not always smoothly moving forward. And so we want to really pay attention to these cycles that we go through and know how we can give to ourselves in the moment to nourish our heart.
I believe many of us forget how impactful even a little thing is. There's been times where I'm working all day right here and I have a little bit of a break. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I might have 7 minutes. Depends on what's going on. And I'm like, I'm walking down those stairs and I'm walking outside. And all I do is just stand and just listen to traffic, birds, wind, whatever it is. And just that little piece, I feel like, Steve, I gave you something. Well, I threw you a breadcrumb. It's amazing how that can make such a difference. And I would imagine, too, with what you're talking about, 30 days to nourish and feed your soul, you should write it down, keep a journal, keep track of it, right? Maybe on a calendar.
Mm-hmm. It's good to track. Anytime that you're working on any kind of consistency of a new pattern, a new habit, to be able to track over time helps us stay on track. And there might be some journaling about that comes up when we're doing that activity or how it felt. So it's good to be organic with it. Like, you don't want journaling to become too rigid of like, now I have to journal what I did today. But you want even a tick mark can be helpful.
A couple of words.
Yeah. Then when you're off track, it's like, oh my gosh, I've already been going for 25 days. I'm not stopping now.
Right.
I'm not starting over at day one.
And maybe even set something on your phone, let's say 3 p.m. in the afternoon. You may have been busy and you've forgotten to do that something for yourself. So alarm goes off. I'm not starting over again. So I need to think of something that's going to make me feel good before the day is up. And you still have, another 6-7 hours, whatever it is. Love this idea. Love all of this. Fantastic. It's so important.
And so often people are really good about figuring out getting their steps in or, other health behaviors. But this is like heart health in a sense of your emotional balance and how to coast through those rough waters of change and loss, but with kind of a way to kind of tactically move forward.
Love it. This is just a piece of the insight that you offer. You're an author, books available, all on your website. How do we find you, Sara?
But the easiest way is to go to my website, directions, 4wellness.com, and there's a contact button. You can reach right out to email me. And directions4wellness.com is how you can see what I offer. And in my book, The Courage to Shine, How to Feel Confident Outside Your Comfort Zone is available on Amazon Books and Audible.
Love it.
And Apple Books. Yes. So you can find my voice here in the Audible or in the book. All my tips, even what we talked about today, is in this book. So it's all there.
As it should be, because it's fantastic. Really. This is, things that we don't see or the angle we don't see. And that's where you come in.
That is my expertise.
It really is. It's your superpower. Mm-hmm. And I sit here and I'm like, well, that's pretty easy to do. Why didn't I think of that? But those are the best ideas. And sometimes we don't have them ourselves. That's why we have professionals we call upon. Thank you so much for today. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to get going on that. I really am.
All right, then. Yeah. You can check in on me later.
Appreciate
see how you're doing.
Okay. All right. We'll talk next time. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old. I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sara.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sara, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Saras in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.